Hey, what's up, everybody? How are you doing?
Hey.
Even though we're in the car, we're down by the bay. We got the water. You see
Breeze.
the breeze going through the car. We got the windows down, and I wanted to talk about a little story that happened to me around 20 years ago. My ex was she was my ex at the time, but she was not feeling good, and I knew she wasn't feeling good because of certain things that were going on with her. Um, and part of our relationship was probably contributing to that. But she wanted to go to the emergency room. And I don't hate hospitals, but I'm not the biggest fan of hospitals, but I do not like emergency rooms. And the energy in it kept me from having to go take a little break and meditate in my car and then come back into the emergency room. And now, if I were to choose, now if I'm in a place that I would just meditate inside of the emergency room to shift the energy with it in it. But because I was more of the student at that point, I'm always the student, but because I was more of the student at the point, after 2 hours of going in and out of the emergency room, being there, trying to be there for my fiance at the time, bouncing back and forth, I was just like, so it'd just be just in there for just a little while and seeing people's faces and everything. And then all of a sudden, 2 hours in, right before they're about to call on my fiance, this baby shows up with his parent, his or her parent. And this baby shifted the whole timeline, the energy, the frequency of the emergency room. Because people weren't doing their sick face. People had sick faces for 2 hours. And then all of a sudden they didn't have that sick face anymore because they didn't want to put that energy towards that baby. And they probably didn't even believe in energy at this point. But when the baby's involved, they're not taking a chance.
Right. Yeah. Such an interesting story. I wonder if anyone who's listening have you ever experienced something like this where you're in a place, it's like, oh, this place sucks, I don't want to be here, and then a child comes in, and the energy of that child is just, it's contagious. Their laughter, their curiosity, their smiles, and yeah, babies too, right? They're like, oh, it's a baby. So interesting how that is. And it reminds me of the fact that we all have that inner child, and we can all tap back into that high heart frequency. The Maya wisdom, they talk about the energy centers, but there's a little bit of a difference where there's a high heart chakra and then a heart chakra. And that high heart is supposed to represent kind of like that child, playful, free, like filled with joy that we receive when we're exploring and we're being in the wisdom of the child, the high heart energy. And so, I was just thinking today actually that so many adults experience dis-ease and are not well because they've forgotten to activate that high heart and the joy and the play in life, and how important it is for us to play, and how your story, Steve, really highlights it. Literally shifts our frequency. Like, we can go from feeling unwell to at least feeling like, fun or curiosity or some other type of emotion that allows us to manage maybe pain we're experiencing. Maybe we're, if you're in the ER, something might be happening to you physically. But everything is connected, it's not just our physical body. And that's what, unfortunately, in the current healthcare system is a challenge, because it's very much, it has what I like to call the silo effect, where it's very isolated in the way in which they approach the idea of medicine, which gets people very separated from their own true wholeness, the holistic nature.
Medicine.
Right, right. Yeah, and so people are thinking like, oh, it's just my physical body, when no, actually our emotions 100% affect the physical body. Think about water and earth and the way that that merges with each other. And what
And
we think too.
a lot of men, women too, but primarily men, think of emotions as being bad.
Right.
And what I believe the case is, because more of my past self was more like that, and I'm occasionally like that in my past, present, and future self, but mainly is because when we're bottling up our emotions, and then all of a sudden our emotions come out, which are out of balance emotions, which are still giving us some awareness. That's why it can appear to be bad, because you're not building up that emotion.
Right.
You're not building up. Think of that emotion as a muscle. You're not building it up to be a strength, to be a superpower. You're bottling it up, and then it comes out. It comes out in an extreme way, and that's why a lot of men, not putting this on all, but definitely my past self, they're the only emotion that they're really good at communicating, and it feels good to a certain period of time, is anger. It feels good for a certain period of time, but if you do it on a consistent basis, it burns out, causes disease.
It's an interesting thing, right? Because I've like, as a psychologist, so interested in things like this. And I don't really usually like using that word psychologist, because it very much infers westernized methods, but I'm very integrated, so I feel more comfortable kind of throwing that word around. But the psychologist in me, meaning the person who's very interested in understanding the mind and the way that the emotional mind affects the whole person, has always interested me, this topic, right? And anger is an expression of unresolved fear. So it's like the underlying emotion is fear. And so it's curious, right, that there is like these patterns where you might notice that men go to the anger emotion, again, not just men, because hey, I can be fiery too. But like how that emotion is perhaps maybe more normalized. And I've done a lot of reflecting about the divine masculine and the divine feminine archetype. And so it is an unhealthy masculine archetype that's going to stay kind of in that aggressive anger, or the aggressive energy that is associated with anger, versus using it as a catalyst for the other wisdom that the masculine is here to, be for us and embody. So, yeah, it's interesting.
And it's interesting that a lot of these like politically, a lot of times I tell people it's like who do you think's benefiting from you being so angry at certain things that are going on?
That's a great question, right? Who do you
world?
think benefits? Yeah,
Who
does
do you
it
think's
benefit
benefits?
you?
Yeah, it's and for me, it's I love that people care. I care.
For sure.
But when I'm angry, I can't. Anger is an extreme amount of blind spots. It gives you're not really seeing things how they are when you're angry. And if you can't see how things are, you can't really act in a meaningful way.
Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah, your logical mind is way gone. It's not available to you. It's offline. Yeah, for sure.
You can appear to be logical.
Yeah.
So that's why I think anger is not a good place. But one of the things that I learned, and it's a big part of my compassion campaign formula, is alchemizing anger into compassion.
Right.
And because I believe that compassion is the most productive energy in the universe. Because when we do get aligned with compassion, then we have laser focus. We're not, I want to do good, but first I want to learn how to use social media and have an understanding of hashtags so I can put the right hashtag together. Or I want to go back to school, even though I have a degree, to get a specific amount of degrees so I could do good and everything. And I'm not against education. I even have a friend that's a psychologist. But I'm all about results. and focusing on that, opposed to just being able to have that. Because the way that dopamine works, if you get inspired and then all of a sudden you think you put the goal too far down and you don't have like balanced, meaningful, consistent goals, then you lose focus and then you go on to something else. And that's everybody. That's everybody. So being able to balance your dopamine and being focused and like letting something unfold like a flower of consistently getting results is something that's meaningful, that can help you get things on a consistent basis. Do you want to add anything to that?
You know, yeah, I have so many reflections as you share, and I'm first thinking about the word compassion. And many years prior, it might come back, stay tuned, my compassionate communication class. And I love talking about this topic because compassion is a very powerful tool, as you share, Steve. This is something that brings us together, and we are very much aligned in that frequency. And I like to talk about compassion and its root word. I'm very fascinated with etymology, which is like the history of or study of the origin of words. And when we think about the word compassion, it actually has two root words that are kind of merged together. One of is the C-O-M-M, right? Come. And that is in the front of a lot of words like communication. And the last part of the word spells passion. And so I always like to say that compassion actually communicates our passion, which if we think about our passion, that's like our solar plexus energy, the energy of our stomach, which gives us like a sense of worth, a sense of purpose and direction, motivation in life, with our heart, that's for me is what passion is. We're communicating passion in our life. And then wrap it back around to the beginning story of like the wisdom of the child, or the child energy. If you study children, or you observe children, you have children in your life, they are so wise in this compassion. Like they can have compassion for a small little insect in a way that adults, we might not even think about it. We're walking and we just smush it. And we don't even think about it. But a child is so observant and so present with its surroundings, with this new world that it's living in. It's this high-hearted joy of life, where you're going to see compassion, you know. And so while maybe a child is going to be more process-oriented than objective goal-oriented, like we might be as an adult, right? That's us integrating the adult wisdom. But it's so important to just kind of go back to that and the connection that it all has with, you know, being able to do all the things that you're mentioning with follow through and everything.
Beautiful, beautiful. This morning, when I was preparing for this, I was in a coffee shop, and I was overhearing a conversation with this woman talking about, we live in San Diego, and she was talking about how she experienced something on vacation somewhere that could never happen in San Diego. And that could be me having that same conversation, so it's not necessarily judgment, but it was the lesson that I learned from that is there's a vacation frequency.
Right.
There's a vacation frequency.
It's interesting, right? We should talk about that too, because that's a whole different perspective. It's like you're living in a different timeline or a different reality.
Yes, but also I want to go into talking about, that could be a full other podcast, but I want to go into it for this conversation, is the frequency of the hospital.
Yeah.
And the frequency of compassion.
Yeah.
And the frequency of that. Tesla said that if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think about, I'm paraphrasing, think about frequency, vibration, and energy.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he says. Yeah. Because that's everything.
And he was definitely somebody that was in the world. He's 100, whatever we are technology-wise, he was 100 years ahead of where we are currently.
Suppressed technology.
Yeah, suppressed technology. And from that standpoint, it's and he was alive 100 years before, and he's still 100 years ahead of where we are, because he had an understanding of frequencies. He was a little, and I don't know if he was framed by that, and I don't think of it as necessarily a bad thing, but he could have been more grounded, because like wanting to marry a pigeon and some of the other things, but there might have been some deeper meaning to that I'm just not aware of.
Yeah, that we're not aware of.
Yeah, not aware of it. Or he could have just been how, I'm gonna speak for myself, how frustrated I get with society. Sometimes that has taken me down the rabbit hole with some outside of the box thoughts that aren't necessarily the best, most productive outside of the box thoughts. But delving into some of those thoughts has helped me open up for a lot of other thoughts and frequencies.
Yeah,
on certain things. I remember one time I was with a mastermind group, outside of the box spiritual group, and I suggested, because we were having a call-in line for people to register for our events, and I suggested that the number was important that we used, and then immediately people was like, oh, all numbers have the same energy. But these people were into numerology, and then all of a sudden, when they paused for a second and didn't immediately attack me, they all of a sudden it went into a different flow. That alone, whether that's true or not, that creative flow and keeping going and doing it. So a lot of times we get lost in these cultures that are created to protect people. They actually do the opposite. So my mom's currently in a nursing home, and I had bought some stuff that she was out of to take to the place, and then they had stuffed it in a little place that was out of the way. So I go to the lady, and I was just asking if they were aware that it was there, because it had been there a week. She got so argumentative.
Because you asked if she was aware if it was there?
No, because she's getting hammered by everybody. She's got to be worried about people falling. She's got to be worried about all this different stuff that she had. What I've got from Malcolm Gladwell, I don't know if it's an official thing, temporary autism. That when you're so stressed, you can't read social cues.
That's an interesting term to use, but yeah. That makes sense, right? When
yeah,
you're
for sure.
Full with a lot of emotion.
Yeah, if I were to go into hospitals, one thing I would do is work on temporary autism for people, because that level of stress, and when lawyers are involved, you got to worry about the lawyers. I went to Catholic school, so on some level I can always find my way out of something, because I had to run, having a military father and going to 8.5 years of Catholic school, I had to run everything through legal. So I understand that. And for the first 40 years of my life, that put me in danger, not necessarily a credible amount of danger, but it put me in danger to a certain extent, opposed to being on the opposite frequency of whatever that is. And the reason why I don't specifically say that, because that can mean a lot of things in a lot of different ways in a lot of different situations. So creating a culture that we listen to people, fully heart-centered, listen to people. We don't feel attacked. We're very supportive. We're not worried about litigation to the extent. We want to do the best. We want to do the best for the people. Going back to Malcolm Gladwell, and then I'll definitely let you speak on that. There's a book, Blink. He's my favorite author. Blink has to be it's in the top 10 books for me, for sure. But one of the things he does, he cites some research that they do this thing, thin slicing, where they're able to look at they would have these people look at a teacher for 15 seconds, and then they were able to do a review on that teacher, just like somebody would do a review on that teacher in a semester. And it was totally accurate.
Based on their...
Wait, real quick. 15 seconds without sound.
Okay. Yeah.
So just based on looks, no sound.
Right.
Yeah, and they were able to do it. But then they put it to 2 seconds, and they was able to be just as accurate at 2 seconds.
Wow.
To do it.
Fascinating.
So what blink is, it's a scientific way and many layers of intuition. And that was the foundation that really led to me to it. But it's an interesting thing because it gives a lot of evidence to say you don't need evidence.
Thank you.
It gives a lot of evidence. But also you need humility, which I was lacking at that point in time. And I'm always seeing of getting more in line more and more with humility and even being humble enough to put myself in the frame. I was like way over here. Can you guys hear me? So the being aligned with the humility of the thin slicing. But going back to it, they did thin slicing on doctors, and they learned, and this one they weren't doing necessarily the viewage of it. They learned that spending 2 minutes more with patients kept them from lawsuits.
Wow, that's a very significant piece of evidence.
Because they weren't upset about mistakes, they were upset about the fact that they didn't feel the doctor listened to them enough to do the right thing.
Yeah. Part of me wants to talk about the experience of like the patient, but the other part of me wants to talk about the practitioners and the stress that they...
Let's do both. Because it's all about the wholeness of this experience.
For sure, and how it plays off of each other, like what you're saying. Like if the practitioner had a full enough cup that was that they were cared for, they themselves felt like they were heard, they themselves felt cared for, they themselves... Right?
Culture, yeah.
And if there was a culture of care that was being cultivated from the top down and from the bottom up, and it constantly like supported each other in that way, how effective hospital systems and things like that might be versus like what happens now.
It's just temporary. They get out of their car, they're compassionate. They have that one exchange, or the environment feels stuck. All of a sudden it's not there anymore.
Yeah. And this is where it brings me back a lot to like the way that we're trained. So like I worked in the field of education for a long time. So I understand that every discipline has its own approach, its own, there's a proper name for it. But anyways, we have our own our own way in which the culture says this is normal, this is, our practice. And so there's belief systems that are part of that. And when we're trained, or we have education, or training or supervision or whatever that mentorship that creates this culture that does not include this idea of mental health or wellness or care or like all of these types of things that are so very important when we think about wellness, then of course it breeds that culture. And just thinking about the healthcare system, I've met, since more recently kind of moving more in the naturopathic type of lane, where I'm not necessarily expressing or using the psychologist hat directly. I have heard so many people in the healthcare industry tell me that they know absolutely nothing about herbs. Nothing. And to me, that is such a disadvantage in their training, to receive no information whatsoever. That is one of the oldest forms of medicine that we have used as an earthling for millennia, that they don't know anything about that. And it's not even part of their practice, and then doctors, and then so on and so forth. So it's like...
But also, I forgot what it's called, organic chemistry. And I'm I'm not anti-pharmaceutical, but I'm not pro-pharmaceutical because I try not to be anti or pro anything. The pharmaceutical, there's a thing called organic chemistry where they find something that heals something in nature, and then they
synthesize it.
There's not enough of it.
Yeah.
there's not enough of it. So they synthesize it. So yeah, why is there an issue with those herbs situation? Because it's somebody's hiding it for a reason, but in 2025 it's kind of on us because nothing should be hidden.
Right, there's so much information freely available for us, And this is where I like to talk about being a conscious consumer, because we consume in every facet of our life, regardless of whether it's I'm a consumer as a part of this industry that I work in as part of my career, or I'm consuming because I'm having a meal. We're always consuming whatever's available in that culture that we are interacting with. And truly, this is a very interesting conversation because, I always think about the bigger picture, and if we're ready, which we are, I believe we are, if we're ready to shift into a culture that is more compassionate, that is viewing wealth and success with like how healthy we feel, how vibrant we feel, you know what I mean? Instead of the things that we have, it will change a lot. And then we start becoming more self-aware and more leaning towards our innate nature, which is living in ceremony. That's the indigenous wisdom, where we're always living in ceremony, meaning every interaction is sacred. It's either an offering to the earth, others, or ourselves. And as we do that, we lean more to creating a culture where we are aware of where things come from, and we are connected to the earth and the natural medicines, and then it has its ripple effect. We can still live in a modern world and use, ancient ancestral wisdom. This is where we're at. We're in a world of integration, and a lot of the new earth energy that I've been receiving wisdom, and it's birthing itself right now, has everything to do with us leaving old paradigms, which has to do with the expressions of colonialism, which part of it has to do with separation. We've been separated from the context in which we live, which is the earth. The more we come back to that, the more we're able to integrate more of these wisdoms into our daily life. And, it has its ripple effect in every way. If nurses, whether they receive training or not, already were consciously aware of their connection to the earth, they consume those herbs to help balance their energy, their mood, anxiety, like whatever we're feeling, stress, anything we're feeling, then they would be more present in their work with others, providing care in that context. And that would then have a ripple effect. It would have to. There would be an automatic ripple effect in the entire culture. And so, each one of us can create a ripple effect that can create bigger change, and then when we all agree on it.
So you said that you wanted to talk about which we already did, and if you wanted to add anything to that, to the practitioners, and then you wanted to talk about the people, the patients.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, this even goes back, so I just made a comment about nurses having more self-awareness. If as a patient, right, or somebody who is in need of care, if we are connected to the truth that our body's an intelligent machine, it knows everything that it needs to know to be healthy, and if we listen to it, then we can give it what it needs in order to have the fuel and all the things it needs to replicate its cells, to repair cells, so on and so forth. That's the starting point, because what exists right now is we live in a culture where everyone unknowingly is giving their power away. Giving your power away, believing like, well, the doctor's here to heal me. Well, no, the doctor is not there to heal you. Your body is there to heal you. There could be other people to support your healing. But if those people don't believe in that holistic approach, they're only going to be able to provide you so much. And giving all of your, ideas of, it is power, but yeah, ideas of who you are and what you're capable of to someone else. But also, yeah, I forgot where I was going with that thought. But the point here is we have to take our power back. That is being part of a conscious consumer, because I've seen it in my own life with family members who very much felt like they were a victim of their diseases, of their ailments, of their chronic pains, and 100% said, sure, doctor, tell me whatever you think and I will do whatever. I will never question. I will never do research. Addicted to pain medications, pharmaceuticals, basically killing other organs in their body because they're taking these medications. And it's a very horrible cycle. And a lot of it has to do with internalized victimization, that I am a victim. And we have to release that. We are not a victim. We might have had very unfortunate circumstances happen to us. But the more that we believe that we are a victim, then we are. And that is a very, very important thing. And honestly, I really believe it fuels the current culture of the healthcare system, where people just they don't even, there's a lack of conscious awareness around what's going on with their own body. I personally believe that if we're going to have an education system, that education system should be teaching us about the human body. Hello, we're humans. That's very important information. There's no reason that each of us not have a basic understanding about what the body is and what it does.
Yeah. Recently I came across this guy who was from another country, and then he became a doctor, and then he went to Russia and he was a doctor, and then for some reason he's here in the US now. And he was saying how, I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I try to stay away from doctors as much as possible. But I said it in a just that was just the way. And he's like, why is that? And he's kind of getting a little argumentative in that. And it's there's a lot of people that don't respect what I do. And if he's gonna try and have a competition about that with me, then he can just go fuck himself. You can go fuck yourself, because I've learned to just tolerate it and really not have a problem with it, and just not be really excited when I have somebody that does do it, but it's oh cool, there's somebody that's open right now. They're not gonna be open for that long, so we're gonna put a lot of information in there. So the fact of I just don't give anybody a blank slate that I just trust everything that they do, just anybody. I think it's unhealthy to be able to do that.
Because be too trusting? What would you call it?
Well,
what would you define that as?
Well, if
discernment?
We'll have the victimness that you talked about it. And then we could have the egoic that only I can fix some things. There's a balance somewhere that's in the middle.
Yeah.
That even though if I'm manifesting a healthy thing, it might come through a doctor, it might come through a bunny rabbit, it might come through any situation.
Yeah.
To do it, but being able to do it to somebody that most doctors, you guys can check this. I used this for a while because I had heard it, but professional boxers live longer than doctors do. I'm gonna have to search that on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But professional boxers live longer than all the trauma that they do there. But there's a culture of a lot of toxicness within there that I can't necessarily. I can run stuff through my model and sometimes listen to it, but I can't listen. Just because somebody went to medical school where they didn't learn nutrition, they didn't learn anything about exercise, I can't listen to them because the answers might be in nutrition and might be in exercise, might be in meditation. I can't give them a blank slate that I'm just going to listen to whatever they say.
Right. And it's okay to seek someone with specialized knowledge. If that's what you're looking for, that's cool. But in our current model, that's not really the way that it is being portrayed. And I just heavily, invite us to, take that back onto oneself, to be, like you said, there's information everywhere. We could do more research. I love typing into the search bar natural remedies for like what are the things, and sometimes it reminds me, oh yeah, that's right, that thing does that, oh yeah, that herb totally does that, oh yeah, that essential oil, oh yeah, I have some. It's so amazing that we're able to do that, and like fully embracing that aspect of the culture now.
I can't remember what comedian said this, but he was saying that he feels that politicians should be like NASCAR, that they wear like the different logos of all the people that are funding them.
Oh, snaps. Fuck yeah.
How about if our doctors did the same?
Right, exactly. That might make us think differently.
Yeah,
right,
if all of a sudden they're talking and they're recommending something from Pfizer, and then all of a sudden they have a Pfizer tattoo on their head.
I'm like, all of a sudden the tattoo.
I'm gonna think, okay, let me do my research.
Yeah, for sure.
Situation.
Yeah.
Or
that's being a conscious consumer. Is really
maybe they can help me uncover what's going on with me, and then I could Google, just like you're able to Google or do whatever type of search that you do to find out what that natural remedy is for that.
Exactly. Yeah, and we can use all the knowledge available. It can be very valuable. People we have to take back the ownership of that. Is not somebody else's role or job, it's our role and our job. And to come back around to the beginning story that inspired our conversation today, like, how might that then, with that culture shift, affect who's actually sitting in the emergency room? Who actually goes to that type of doctor? Because we live in we live in the United States, so we live in a capitalist-driven society of supply and demand. If we're not demanding that, we have the power to dissolve those, things that don't align with what we are wanting to consume.
And if you want to heal yourself, you got the supply within, and you demand the woman. Supply and demand. Supply and the woman.
Supply and the woman. Yeah.
She was almost gonna not laugh at that. She's like, oh. She's like,
I already know his humor, so it's all good. But yeah.
I was gonna go to there, then the pharmaceutical situation. So like, I just want you to know, I don't know who this baby was. Never paid them a cent for helping me out. But I don't believe in child labor. I do not believe in child labor. That's why I didn't pay the baby. And if my attorney, like I went to 8.5 years of Catholic school, my imaginary friend growing up was an attorney. My attorney says the contract was that piece of licorice. Even though I didn't give it, my consciousness being there may have put part of that. And it's like, it's just a baby. I mean, they're in their 20s now, early 20s. It was just a baby then. It's like, we don't even know if it's a good person now. We don't even know. It's like,
I'm being reminded of something. Your central energy, but there are energies that live among us that are specifically aimed to transform negative energy into positive energy. It's like the transmuter. It helps to alchemize. It's the alchemizer. And so in Maya wisdom, the obsidian is that in gem form, and in this story it was the baby. But it is really powerful to just think about what tools you might have that help you alchemize the energy when you feel that whatever it is If it doesn't feel vibey for you, it's got that vibration that's just making you feel yuck. What can you do for yourself to alchemize that energy? And you never know how powerful your individual tool for your own emotional, mental, physical regulation can be inspiring for someone else. That could be as simple as what Steve mentioned, like instead of him going to his car, if he was in a different stage of his own personal development, he might have just started meditating right there on the seat. And how observing that might have inspired someone else to shift their own energy, to think about their own breathing, and things of that nature. So we use the tool for the self, and when we embody that energy for ourselves, it can be very inspiring. And that's something I would, recommend to share, to shift that positive. We could all do it, even if we're not a baby, basically.
And for the final word, unless you have something else to say, is your inner child is the most powerful alchemist in the world.
Most powerful.
Not in the universe, just the world. One day, maybe the universe, but right now...
Your own universe.
Don't correct me. What she said. Thank you.
Till next time.
Till next time.